Call the Central Vermont, oh boy, this name is so long. Why don't you get a catchphrase? I'm going to call you the Career Center.
CVCC SD.
The Central Vermont Career Center School District annual meeting is called to order. We're in Barre, Vermont. And Article 1 is to elect the following officers to serve from their election qualification for 1 year until the election and qualification of their successors. Nominations can be made for moderator, clerk, and treasurer. Would anyone like to make a nomination for any of those officers?
I nominate you, Paul, for moderator.
I'll second it.
Just to ease your burden, you don't really need to second a nomination. Isn't that cool? All right, are there any nominations for clerk or treasurer?
Jody, am I the clerk, or is that a different clerk?
That's a different clerk. In this case, it's Tina Lunt.
Oh, okay. I nominate Tina Lunt.
Any other nominations for clerk or moderator? How about treasurer?
I'll nominate Ashley Young.
I ask your name, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Sir?
Guy Isabel.
Hi, Isabel. Well, we have nominations for each of the 3 offices, but we can take more if people have other names. Hearing none, are you ready to vote on Paul Hanlon for moderator, Tina Lunt for clerk, and Ashley Young for treasurer? All those, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right. Article 2. To determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid to district officers. You have a motion. Anyone?
I move that we keep the current compensation for board members and officers.
Just for officers right now, please. And could ask Jody what that number is for each person?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up right now.
Do we need a second for this motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay.
My name is Patrick Welling.
Patrick Welling.
Yeah, Welling, W-H-E-L-L-E-Y.
Thank you.
Sorry, 2-minute job time. Start, but one guy is, so I'm not worried about it. All right, so $500 for moderator, $500 for clerk, and $1,500 for the treasurer. The treasurer is the one that signs the district's checks every other week.
Did everyone out in the ether hear those numbers? Okay. Is there any discussion? I will go on the record just to say that I have not taken that compensation and don't wish to have it, but it's okay if you vote it. Are we ready to vote? So the motion before you is to keep the current compensation for the officers of moderator, clerk, and treasurer, $500 for moderator, $500 for clerk, and $1,500 for treasurer. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Article 3, to determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid to school board members. Is there a motion?
Last year it was $1,500 per school board member, and the chair of the board, $2,500.
I move we keep the compensation at the current level.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to keep the compensation level for school board directors and chair at the current level. Jody has suggested that the current level is $1,500 for members and $2,500 for the chair. Is there discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. Article 4, see if the school district will authorize the board of directors to receive and expend funds received through grants, donations, or other outside sources during the ensuing year, so long as such funds do not change the technical education tuition assessment derived from the operating budget approved by the school district voters. Is there a motion?
I would move that.
May I ask your name?
I am Alice Farrell, F as in Frank, A-R-R-E-L-L.
I'll second it, Paul.
Thank you. You all may know what this means. Does anyone want to explain it?
Just
No.
means that if we get additional funds above and beyond the amount we budgeted for, we have permission to spend them. So our Perkins grant, for example, or if we receive scholarships, but that we can't take from our allocated budget that's been approved by voters to pay for those things.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, are you ready to vote? All those in favor of the article as printed, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Let's have it. Article 5, to authorize the board of directors to borrow funds through a bridge loan to cover expenses while waiting for state funding to arrive. Is there a motion?
I would move that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Go ahead.
You got it, Jane?
Is there, okay, so, is there discussion of the article?
This is often to cover the summer and very beginning of the year expenses before the state ed fund money comes into our bank accounts.
Okay. All those in favor of authorizing the board of directors to borrow funds through a bridge loan to cover expenses while waiting for state funding to arrive, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Ayes have it. Article 6, to determine whether to authorize the board pursuant to the provisions of 16 VSA Section 563 Sub 10 and Sub 11C to provide mailed notice to residents of the availability of the annual report and proposed school budget in lieu of distributing the annual report and proposed budget. What's your pleasure?
I would move that
Thank
as
you.
well.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Terry.
Lori Steele.
Thank you. Is Is there a discussion?
Yes, I have a question. This is Jana. I just wonder whether or not that prevents some from having access because they don't have it delivered. You know, I just am wondering. I mean, I understand the motive behind it. It certainly saves paper. But what about folks that don't use technology to get their information?
It saves paper and money because the
Yeah,
cost of
name.
our postcard is certainly cheaper than sending our booklet. And that could be a barrier.
But I believe, Janet, it says on the postcard that if you want a copy, you can call and have a copy sent to you.
Right. It does. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's a hard one. I mean, I support saving money. I just wonder about those who might not have access, even if they get the card.
Do we remember what the bill was the last time we mailed it out? Didn't we have to mail it out during the pandemic? No?
I'll have to look that up. I don't have that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? You ready to vote? All those in favor of Article 6 as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Article 7, to determine whether to authorize the board to allocate unencumbered funds to a capital fund to support the acquisition or construction of capital facilities and other capital assets. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
This is a new item. This was something that we had wanted to do in the past, but needed to happen here at annual meeting to make it happen. And the reason is that if we have an excess of 3% on our budget and we go into the next year, then we end up sending money back to our sending schools and not having funds potentially available to support the things that we might need. And so this could allow us to decide that we could put some of that aside each year to support any facilities work that we need, which would have been super helpful for the welding program.
For clarification, that would be over and above any tuition that we need to reimburse, correct?
So that would be taking the money before the end of the year and allocating it into another source. So that, say you would want to decide at some point, if we have money aside, we want to put 50,000 into the capital fund account. And then it's put into that and it doesn't, we don't close out our year with that in our general fund.
Would that be for facilities specifically, or would it be for other capital items like large pieces of like equipment that are in programs or things like that are capital?
Anything that would fall under capital facilities or equipment resources that we need.
Presumably, to spend money, you would need to warn it.
Right, absolutely.
Is there any further discussion? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor of Article 7 as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Article 8, to transact any other business, the subject matter of which has been included in the warning that the voters have power to transact at any annual meeting. This does not require a motion unless somebody has a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion to adjourn is appropriate.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you very much.
Do you want to take a little break before we roll into budget forum or jump right in?
Just do that.
Thank you, Paul.
Welcome, thank you. Put my $500 in capital.
So we do have on the docket a budget forum next, and I'll roll through the presentation for that. And then at 7:15, we will reconvene for our board meeting that we are hosting at that time, which is, I think, on a different link, but I haven't checked that. Any questions before I move into that?
Jody, did you say we're going to be going into Google again for the next meeting, or we stay here?
We're gonna stay in this one for the budget forum, and then we're gonna shift to our board meeting at 7:15, or I don't think we can start before then.
No, but do we stay on though, or are we gonna log on here again?
You stay on for this one, but I think you have to log into a different meeting for the 7:15.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, I have some stuff blocking my view here. All right, so anyone who was at any of the sending school presentations, this will look really familiar to you.
Mhm.
Or if you were at our board meeting when we discussed it. It's not wanting to go around. We start off with this district mission. The Central Vermont Career Center School District supports and prepares students to be engaged members of a diverse society in the workforce through rigorous, safe, and experiential learning communities. All of our programs are represented by those. The board for the Central Vermont Career Center School District had 3 goals that they've been working towards. One is the long-term planning and the ability to serve all eligible students in our region and to provide programming that fulfills their needs in a state-of-the-art standalone center that is staffed and resourced appropriately and will realize those increased enrollments versus applicant percentage, as well as having the academics in the day. The second goal was to provide equitable, safe, and rigorous programs by strengthening our inclusive curriculum, instruction, and assessment across the center. And the third was community engagement, where we have been actually traveling for the last few months for our board meetings to our sending schools to try to get some different engagement practices. I think we still have work to do there, but it did help in a couple of places. When the CVCC SD board gave Michelle, our business manager, and myself the charge of developing our budget, they wanted to make sure that we're still seeing that future of having the standalone center built by 2029, where we can start that to increase access as much as possible. So making sure that we provide opportunities in our current space for more students to access and make sure that we're enhancing our students' preparedness for entering the workforce. This comes about because for the last 3 years, the interest in CTE and CVCC has been growing, and we've been turning away a lot of applicants due to space limitations. This year alone, in our first round, we had 334 applicants for 240 seats. Now, it doesn't actually equate across all of those programs because you may have, as you know, 60 applicants for a couple of programs, and other programs don't have quite enough applicants to fill them. So working on making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and our industry is part of our work. We want to improve academic access. It's part of the reason that we have 2 integrated academics teachers on staff this year. We have an integrated STEM person who teaches math and science and supports programs that way. And we have a humanities person who's doing some social studies and English literacy in our programming. And we've been hearing great feedback and hopeful to see some shifts in our work keys data and some of our other data that shows that that's helpful. And then we're working to make sure that our experience for our students is not only educational, but really prepares them for the workforce that they're about to enter. This is the mission statement for the center. It's very much the same, a little bit of different wording than the district mission. And our tagline there, the education that works. And every photo in this also is current students, so this current school year. So when we're looking at budget development, we need to think about those goals and also make sure that we have the resources to provide for what exists now to take care of the facilities costs that we incur to the Barre District, to make sure that we have qualified staff, that we have the instructional hardware, materials, and equipment that's needed for students to achieve those standards. And we wanted to make sure that we're clear about our budgeting process. When we went into this one, we are still working towards that full day standalone program and trying to build up to that. We were asked what a level services budget would be. And so that is indeed what we went with. At first, we came back with expecting that to be a 12% increase and that we should maybe look down from that. But a level service budget is 10.8% increase, which is what the board decided to go with. We offered up a few different options for them, and we decided to go with that 10.8%. And that partly was because the base education rate went down for the first time ever. And so that shift of 3% had us a little nervous about the impact on our sending schools, because it'll be reflected in the direct tuition to them in the FTEs that they have. So based on their 6th semester average of students sent to us, they'll be charged more because the base rate went down. So what comes on behalf of our sending schools from the ed fund is lowered, and what comes from our sending schools directly is higher. That makes sense. Some of the things that we need to think about as we're budgeting are our class sizes, which are set in rule as far as the maximum that we can have, not to mention the spaces that we have available, which does limit some of our programming opportunities. And again, working to build that new facility in the future. This is where it talks about the state base education rate. We anticipated that it would go up, it went down. And our health insurance benefits, of course, went up. So that was an average increase of 11.9%. Also, we have increased liability insurances, increased collective bargaining agreement expected, and the supply costs keep going up, as you know, and likely are going to go higher. So anticipating those changes and the facility costs that will likely increase, we have not seen yet our facilities use agreement, which will expire June 30th. So we should be seeing a new one from the USD soon. We needed to anticipate all of those things, and that's what increased our overall budget. Our anticipated tuition, which needed to be set by January 15th, is $20,738. We expect that we'll be able to charge for 195 FTEs, although we have 217 students here in the building. So that's how the 6th semester average impacts us as we continue to grow. We don't see the growth from those numbers as quickly. This is just showing where we have capacity, and for any program that's over 16, there's a couple of programs that naturally can take more. Digital media, graphic arts, for example, can take more students, and exploratory takes 24. But any of the other ones that have 21, it's 16 is the amount of first years they're allowed. And then with assistance from a lab assistant, we can include 5 co-op students. So automotive, it's including we have the capacity for up to 5 co-op students in automotive or building trades. So that's how those numbers came about as far as looking at capacity. So we could increase the number of students we have over this year's just by adding more co-op students and having all of our programs filled. This again is our announced tuition or anticipated tuition, which is a 9.7% increase. Remember, it was an over 10% increase to the budget, but the tuition amount is 9.7, and that's, I think I explained that, so that's better. There are some other pieces that we get, so we do get funding from the Ed Fund that supports our CTE support grant, we get tuition reduction grant, and we get some salary assistance for the required positions, such as mine, the assistant director, the co-op coordinator, and there's the school counseling coordinator and the special services coordinator. So all of those have a portion, 35% or 50%, that is provided through salary assistance grants that are paid directly to us. And then the remaining piece is what's divided into that tuition to our sending schools. Michelle took a look at our budget a couple of different ways to show you where the funds being spent, and as they should be, the majority of funds are spent in general instruction. You can see the little other pieces of it as far as board, instruction, curriculum development, administration, technology, the operation of the building from the facilities use fee, special education, those different costs. And by object code, salaries, benefits, contracted services, supplies, property. So a couple of ways to look at where is the money going. Again, here are the revenue portions that we get. So the tuition from adults and other students, our VOCAD support grant, the state tuition, that's the on behalf payment from our sending out of the Ed Fund, the state tuition reduction, the salary assistance, and any revenues from the businesses we have. Notice it doesn't include the grants. That was something we just talked about in the annual meeting, that those are above and beyond our budgeted amount, and then they're spent outside of that based on the permission we just got. Thank you for going out and voting. We really appreciate the interest in CTE and the support that we've had over the years. And we hope that we can continue providing this education for our students. I'm going to stop sharing, and anyone who has questions, let us know. There is a question. Comments? In the comments from Byrne, I don't understand how a district like the UUSD that has a 4.95 increase this year is one of the lowest funding schools supports more than twice that spending for the Career Center. I think the Career Center is great, but have concerns when a Career Center board member doesn't support the UUSD budget as a board member of that board for this year. Without educating our little kids, we wouldn't have the Career Center. This feels like a great disparity. Thank you. Thank you for your comment, Byrne. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Alice, to moderate if there's, I think Peter has a question.
Okay, and Mr. Anthony, have a question? Mr. Anthony, your mute is on.
Accidental hand raise must be.
Okay,
Questions or comments from anywhere? I read your comment. Are you asking that particular board member to respond? I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind in CTE land is that the equipment and the costs of the supplies we have are much more than in the traditional programming. And I would say that our facilities use fee does definitely still pays the amount that we used to pay as a member of the Berry Unified Union School District for the facilities, the tech director. So we do support, a lot of that money goes right back to Berry it's almost equivalent to the tuition amount that is directly billed to BUSD. So there's a little bit of a shuffle based on what those funds are used for. It's not a direct equation, but it does cost more to educate in CTE. It is important to educate students to be ready for attending CVCC, and certainly the students that have better opportunities may have more access. Traditionally, because we're on the same campus as Spalding High School, we tend to see more Spalding students in our ranks. So usually there's probably 75 to 80 Spalding students, and then the next school down has 60 or less, between 40 and 60, and then the next one down has 30, and so on and so forth through our 6 sending schools. We also have students that come in from other districts, Randolph, Williamstown, Northfield, and homeschool students who attend. So we see a wide array of students. We definitely support education of all our students just to get here, but we also recognize that there's an added cost to CTE. And I think you can see that even reflected in the governor's plan for transformation of education, in that they're looking to fund CTE students at $25,000 per student, when the traditional student in education would be $13,200. So there is definitely that understanding, and I know you're not being mean, so I understand that, Vern. I hope that helps a little bit.
Can I also address that?
You may.
There also is a significant difference in budgeting and budget preparation between the general education schools and the Career Center. The Career Center does not have surpluses. The Career Center is a tuition-based school, whereas general education is directly taxpayer funded. So there are all of those things that go into it. And the biggest thing is the difference between how the budgets are prepared, how the income comes to the Career Center, and how the income comes to general education. So that makes a real difference in individuals' thinkings, regardless of whether they are on any board, and how they conduct themselves. So that's the answer, Vern. There's a real difference between the two. They're not the same.
Jody, I don't know how many people know you're the president of the Vermont Association of Career and Technical Directors, and I know you've been testifying on behalf of that group. I'm wondering, I mean, you mentioned one piece of the governor's proposal where, our centers would benefit. Are you seeing any other major changes that are being mentioned, or?
It's hard to answer that right now because their official proposal is not on the table yet. It's coming tomorrow.
No.
So the association that did the initial study of CTE is releasing their updated report tomorrow at 1:15. So House and Senate Education and the House Commerce and Economic Development Committees are joining together for that. And then that is followed directly by the agency releasing the draft bill for the governor's plan. So while we have ideas of what's coming, that will give us more information about it. I think that there are concerns about how CTE may be handled, and I don't think it aligns with the original report. So what VACTED has released and what you have in front of you that I sent to all of you is basically our response to the original study in 2023 and where we see alignment with the governor's plan based on what we know and what we're still looking for. And so we'll be able to update that, I hope, after it drops tomorrow. Of course, most of us are on vacation this week. So I would say I'll be able to update that probably next week with our responses.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that does our budget forum, unless anyone has any other questions. And that should give you enough time to get home, Alice, for our 7:15 meeting.
Thank you.
But anyone is welcome to stay here for it as well. Thank you all.